Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, February 7th, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, we gotta let you know that even though we do try to act as a news station, we only go from, we only get our sources from the most reputable places with award-winning journalism and research. We do not do sensational news like Fox News or whatever extreme left or extreme right sites that people may be enticed to go to. We just give you facts, nothing but the facts. At the same time, guys, the things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, but viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start this second week of February? Yeah, second week of February. It's kind of weird. We're in 2024. We're saying second week of February. Well, with the Southern states, there seems to be this hold my beer competition that a lot of people are fond of. That I, unfortunately, because I live in the progressively backward state of Tennessee, not because of the people, because the idiots run the clown show, we always seem to have this certain competition. And the certain competition just doesn't go away. What I mean by that is, I start with our first story. Man accused of plotting a sniper attack on the border, talks a big game, says it's all lies. The man that you see there, Paul Fay, literally told undercover FBI agents because of the border crisis that he wants to go down, join a militia, and be a quote-unquote sniper to stop them from crossing the border. This man has been investigated by the FBI for over a year, and at this point he's being labeled as a terrorist. His son, mind you, says they quote-unquote think my dad's a terrorist. He's not a terrorist. He talks a big game, but it's all lies. Here's the problem with this. When you see certain things like that, where they literally go, oh, he just talks a big game. Who decides to talk a big game about going to go be a sniper from Tennessee? Tennessee, a landlocked state, mind you. Tennessee borders are surrounded by southern and northern states. We're nowhere close to Mexico. We're nowhere close. We're nowhere close to our Latinx brothers and sisters. That being said, why does this 55-year-old man, believe that he needs to go ahead and do the work of, imaginary border patrol? And what makes it worse is that his son, mind you, is sitting there saying, oh, he's harmless. Nope. See, that's the kind of thing right there that needs to have accountability attached to it. Well, they think my dad is a terrorist. Your dad is literally saying he's going to the border to shoot what he quotes illegal immigrants. He's going to shoot illegal immigrants. It wasn't up until last year. Remember the infamous picture of the border patrol person having a whip in their hands and they're whipping, and the entire imagery of it all? That was taken seriously. So I'm sorry, Mr. Paul Fay, you also be taken seriously. But the funny thing about folks that are bigots, zealots, xenophobia, and things of that nature, you can call them anything else under the sun. Don't call them a terrorist. It's almost like, oh, well, I'm not a terrorist, I'm a patriot. No, you're a terrorist. You decided that you wanted to threaten the lives under a false sense of nationalism, disguised as patriotism, and then you want to basically go live out whatever wet dream Fox News fantasy that you have. Yes, you should be held accountable. But I love the fact that his son saying, well, no, he's not that bad. He's not a sniper. We went hunting, and my dad took about 3 different times to hit a deer. Not helping his case. Not helping his case at all. And honestly, I don't feel bad for it. But speaking of things that unfortunately were a waste of time, and I say a waste of time just because when I read, because this is a story that we've covered, and even then I was like, this, how did this get to a trial? And what I mean by that is the case of that young man right there, case of Mississippi child who was arrested for urinating in public because the child was with his mom at a location. The location did not have public restrooms. The boy had to go, so he decided to go right there beside the car. Officers saw that as urinating in public and decided to arrest the boy. If you want to know, at the time, the boy was 10 years old. So the police decided to arrest a 10-year-old at the time for urinating in public. Now, the young man is now 11 years old. And the thing about this is, which I'm glad that the judge had common sense. He's like, this isn't even worth time. I mean, it's not even worth their time. It's like, why even? And it's kind of funny where they tried to push probation. The prosecutor, and that's the wild part. The prosecutor wanted to push a probationary agreement. Now, again, for all those that don't know, when you take a probationary agreement, depending on the terms, it may list you as a criminal, or it may list you as finding your, reporting that you're guilty, or pretty much saying that you're guilty. Now, again, it's a 10-year-old that had to go when there's no restroom facilities available. I'm more mad about the fact that the officers who arrested him, the prosecutor that tried to do this BS probationary agreement, thankfully the judge had to step in and say, are you freaking kidding? It's like, this is what what's so crazy is, the judge was more mad about the officers and the prosecution trying to try this child. That's the crazy part. For urinating in public, something I'm almost certain almost every one of us has done, whether we want to admit it or not. But at the same time, does it really involve a 10-year-old needing to have a criminal record? Which thankfully the judge decided to throw that out. However, I would wonder about the officers that arrested the 10-year-old, as well as the prosecution that decided to try to do a probationary agreement. That to me is ridiculous. But then I think about it, it's Mississippi. The league of hold my beer competition is strong with the southern states. But I digress. But speaking of things that are useless, the GOP failed to impeach Department of Homeland Security Director Mayorkas because, again, they have nothing better to do. Again, guys, this goes back to the border crisis that we were talking about, that Republicans are sitting there screaming from high heaven about, oh, migrants are crossing every day. Our Border Patrol is handcuffed. We need to put down razor wire. We need to put down a wall. We need to stop this wave of immigrants from coming in. And part of the GOP's diatribe was going after the secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. It amazes me so, because they tried. The vote went to the House. It failed in the House. They did a motion to do another vote again, and that vote failed, which means that Mayorkas is fine. He's not going anywhere. But this goes back to what I said about the GOP. The GOP are not trying to do anything except keep their jobs. And again, it amazes me. This is the part where I stand in amazement about the GOP, because number one, what do you have to run on come the midterms? Number two, if you're a presidential if you're trying to go for the presidential nomination for the GOP, how can you sit there and say, oh, well, this is what we've done and this is what we'll do if I'm elected? Because I say the same thing to all conservatives. The GOP have done literally shit this entire Congress. This entire 118th Congress, the GOP has not done anything productive. They have not passed any laws that are productive. They have not passed any laws to help their constituents. They have not done anything except get paid to show up, argue, and leave. Oh, and then say no to whatever Democratic measure is being put up for a vote. And this is no different. Because again, and we're going to go back to the border momentarily, but this is the point I'm making, is the fact that the GOP have no leg to stand on. They know it as well as everyone else knows it, except their conservatives. Their conservatives will swear up and down that it's the Democrats' problem, it's the left problem, that whatever Fox News or whatever Blaze they're watching will sit there and say, oh, well, Biden should have this fixed. Biden said last week, literally last week, had sat there and said, "You submit an immigration bill and I will shut down the border." He put the GOP on blast and said, "If you want something, bring something to a vote. And if it's there, I will shut down the border." Imagine a president who is so confident in the fact that the alternate party won't do shit that he sat there and said, "All you have to do is submit a bill to my desk and I will shut down the border." He didn't give particulars. He didn't give details. He sat there and said to the GOP, "Work with the Democrats, submit a bill to my desk, and I will shut down the border." And what did the GOP do? Crickets. Democrats, I have been saying this. Whenever it comes to Democrats, they try to push something forward. You cannot, and I hate to say this in a lame duck Congress. What I mean by that is each party either holds the House or the Senate or vice versa, or the House, the Senate, or the presidency. Either way, it's a lame duck Congress because there's always one side on the left, one side on the right, and nothing gets done because both parties will fall on the party lines and vote against the other party. The thing I'm getting at is whenever it comes to Democrats, because again, immigration is only as big as an issue as concerned conservative napkins make it. And by napkins, I mean a certain special bunch of white folks. "Oh, well, Mexicans are crossing our borders every day." I'm sorry, is America full? Did we have a no vacancy sign on the border? And again, these are people that are coming over from unexplainable situations, war torn situations, just wanting a better life. At the same time, it's not like America's running out of space. The thing is, what napkins are afraid of is that those immigrants that do come in will have children here. Those children will be U.S. citizens. Those U.S. citizens become voters. Enough of them voters come in, there's a certain shift in the diversity pool, and it doesn't shift in their favor. That's the reason why, for a lot of them, they're going with these lies. "Oh, well, these immigrants come here, they get bused to sanctuary cities, and they rob, they steal, they do all this." They paint this picture that whatever comes from countries of brown people, we should say, always seem to be a negative tone. Meanwhile, they're not saying anything about Russia. They're not saying anything about Ukraine. They're not saying anything about these other immigrants coming from the not so seasoned areas. And those immigrants that are coming in just fine. What the GOP needs to say, and I say this again, because they'll always complain about a problem, but the GOP will never present a problem. And they'll never present a way to solve the problem. They'll never present it. They will sit there and they'll just say, "Well, I can't believe this is happening. Something needs to be done." Democrats on the inside, like, "Well, we tried DACA, we tried the DREAM Act, and you shot them both down." Democrats have always presented an immigration bill. Now, the one thing I wish they would also do is present a veteran affairs bill because, we all support the troops, but when the troops come back, they're still fucked up and nothing is done to help them. But again, going back to immigration, GOP love to complain about a problem, but will never provide a solution. And again, we'll explain very much of that in a little bit. But get down to Biden for a second, because I thought this article in CNN was interesting, and I want to share this with you guys. That although the economy, for most intents and purposes, are improving, our current president wants to know why Americans are still feeling bad. And this is why I sit there and say, in this article, Biden does reach out to constituents and ask them, if they are happy with the way things are going on, because Biden wants to take a victory lap. He wants to a certain extent, he can. To a certain extent, he can. The thing is, where the disconnect is, Biden is a moderate Democrat. That's like Republican light. Still conservative, but just enough to be considered a Democrat. The thing about it is what I said about Biden, and I say this all the time about Biden. He's going to have a hard time reaching out to minority voters. He's going to have the most difficult time because a lot of people, a lot of individuals who did vote for Biden are still wondering, he's like, what has he done for black people? And again, as a person that talks to a lot of my people, and I'm like, I can't vote conservative. But it's a hard argument when it comes to Biden. It's a hard argument because again, Biden was progressive at one point. Biden was pushing for minimum wage increase. He was pushing to get Build Back America plan in to actually fix America's infrastructure. He was thinking about. He didn't say it, and I will stress this very heavily. He never said he would wipe out student loan debt. He said he would do something about it. So it's very middle of the road. And I say that very, because with student loan debt, we all can do. I mean, some of us, I know myself including that pool, some of us do. Some of us still have it, still dealing with it. And Biden along with Kamala Harris was supposed to do something. Now, again, I'm stressing very heavily, Biden never said that he would wipe out the student loan debt, although that was more of Bernie Sanders and others that wanted to have that removed. And right, and understandably so, because when you have that kind of debt on you, your debt to income ratio, when it comes to getting a home, getting a car, or even getting a good job, is compromised. Because when they see that much amount of debt on your credit report, it does make life a little bit difficult. Now, that being said, the president did try to push through with the SAVE plan, with a plan, knocking off $10,000, $20,000. It's a drop in the bucket, sure. I won't argue that. It is a drop in the bucket. But it was such a drop in the bucket that Republicans couldn't do anything. But you know who did? Two individuals who had no student loans that did not like the fact that they would be paying for others decided to sue the federal government. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sat there and said, no, the president does not have the ability to forgive student loan debt completely. But in a way, he has. He's already forgiven those that were schemed from for-profit colleges. He's already forgiven those that were under the public self loan program, but had a back date. He did forgive those that were paying on their loans for 10 years, and after 10 years, the loans were forgiven. But again, this is all backdated information that because of the Department of the FAFSA and financial aid departments and Department for Student Loans and Board of Education, Department of Education, they didn't have enough manpower to actually monitor all this. So I get that to a certain extent. But for everyone else that's not a part of it, they don't feel the same relief or expectations from Biden. If anything, they're feeling left out, except during election time when politicians are all up in your face saying, would you vote for me? Would you vote for me? And I said it before, for Biden to honestly get individuals back on his side, he is going to have to go progressive. He is going to have to do some things that may be unpopular because, again, you giving money to Ukraine and Israel, but yet you don't give no money to your own constituents. You're seeing billions of dollars leave our shores and go overseas. You're seeing our money leave our shores and fight wars. You're seeing our money go to tax cuts for corporations and rich people. But when it comes to the average everyday American citizen, the reason why Biden doesn't understand it because, well, he's out of touch. That's just being honest. But we'll see because he did win the primary in Nevada because no one else is running against him to actually matter at this point. So we shall see if he does expand on that. We really will. But speaking of expansions, this was not on my bingo card for 2024. Former Fox columnist / host, all-around douchebag Tucker Carlson has done the one thing I never thought any journalism with anybody with any shred, and in his case, none of journalism integrity would do. He decided he wanted to interview Vladimir Putin. The worst part about it is he may have succeeded.
Moscow tonight, we're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We'll be doing that soon. There are risks to conducting an interview like this, obviously, so we thought about it carefully over many months. Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people. 2 years into a war that's reshaping the entire world, most Americans are not informed. They have no real idea what's happening in this region, here in Russia or 600 miles away in Ukraine. But they should know. They're paying for much of it in ways they might not fully yet perceive. The war in Ukraine is a human disaster. It's left hundreds of thousands of people dead, an entire generation of young Ukrainians, and it's depopulated the largest country in Europe. But the long-term effects are even more profound. This war has utterly reshaped the global military and trade alliances, and the sanctions that followed have as well. And in total, they have upended the world economy. The post-World War II economic order, the system that guaranteed prosperity in the West for more than 80 years, is coming apart very fast, and along with it, the dominance of the US dollar. These are not small changes. They are history-altering developments. They will define the lives of our grandchildren. Most of the world understands this perfectly well. They can see it. Ask anyone in Asia or the Middle East what the future looks like. And yet the populations of the English-speaking countries seem mostly unaware. They think that as nothing has really changed. And they think that because no one has told them the truth. Their media outlets are corrupt. They lie to their readers and viewers. And they do that mostly by omission. For example, since the day the war in Ukraine began, American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they've done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky, and we hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda, propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people. At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too. Freedom of speech is our birthright. We were born with the right to say what we believe. That right cannot be taken away no matter who is in the White House. But they're trying anyway. Almost 3 years ago, the Biden administration illegally spied.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there because, again, it's Tucker Carlson. I know for a lot of us, we can't stand him, press company included. But it is amazing to me that for a guy who had probably one of the most syndicated shows on Fox News, on the Fox News channel, which again, Fox News is not a real news channel. They literally said that in their lawsuit with Dominion that they're not a entertainment, they're not a news central station. They are an entertainment channel. That also being said, I just who had Tucker Carlson is going to try to defend Vladimir Putin in Russia in a war that they started by infiltrating Ukraine, and then say, well, no one asked Putin his side of the story. Are you effing kidding? No one asked the guy who gave the order to invade Ukraine his side of it. Well, what reasons did he have for invading Ukraine? I can think of 4 letters from U.S. history that might say otherwise. But it's Tucker Carlson. I know a lot of people are going, a lot of people are sitting there saying, didn't we get rid of him? We did. Fox News did because again, Dominion hit them with that kind of a hefty price tag, and of course, Fox News had to cut some folks. The thing about it is, there are so many lies in that. First off, Tucker Carlson is not a journalist. He isn't. And other news sites have tried to reach out to Putin. CNN has tried, ABC News has tried, NBC News has tried, CBS News has tried, and a whole cavalcade of others have tried to interview the dictator of Russia. And yet, for just magical reasons, he decides that he wants to grant an audience with douchebag Tucker Carlson. And yet Carlson has the unmitigated gall to sit there and say, oh, well, it's propaganda that they're pushing for because ever since the war started, they always want to make Russia look like the bad guy. No, history has kind of proven that. But again, I digress. It's Tucker Carlson trying to show Fox News, hey, it's almost like Tucker Carlson is saying to Fox News, call me maybe. I can still do this. I can still sling crap from my mouth and still sleep well at night. At the same time, I can only imagine that if he does have an interview with Putin, it's nothing but softballs. But I never wished so hard for Tucker Carlson to get stuck in a country like Russia and get treated like the locals. But that's just me. Another douchebag that's still trying to get on, even though his shtick is no longer playing. But speaking of things that are no longer playing, Trump actually got some bad news this week. Actually, kind of funny for the rest of us.
To the unanimous ruling against Donald Trump, saying he is not immune from federal charges in the January 6th election interference case. Tonight, the three-judge panel speaking with one voice, saying no former president is above the law for all time thereafter. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, tonight.
Tonight, in a scathing opinion, a federal appeals court rejecting Donald Trump's claims he has complete immunity from prosecution for anything he did as president, including his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The three-judge panel unanimously ruling former President Trump has become Citizen Trump. Any executive immunity that may have protected him while he served as president no longer protects him against this prosecution. We cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter. Trump claims he cannot be tried for trying to overturn the election and his actions leading up to January 6th.
The president has to have immunity.
In court in January, the judge is deeply skeptical, asking if a president could order the assassination of his opponent and get away with it. Trump's lawyer arguing a president can't be charged unless he is first impeached and convicted by Congress.
Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
so your answer is no.
Today, the court was blunt. We cannot accept former President Trump's claim that the president has unbounded authority to commit crimes. The judge is also taking aim at the serious nature of the charges Trump faces, writing former President Trump's alleged efforts to remain in power despite losing the 2020 election were, if proven, an unprecedented assault on the structure of our government. Trump has until Monday to appeal to the Supreme Court. If the High Court declines the appeal, the judge overseeing the case could set a new trial date soon. But if the Supreme Court decides to consider the matter, all bets are off, David. There could be lengthy delays.
Isn't that crazy that we had to go this far? We had to literally go this far because Trump does not care. Here's the thing, and people just don't. And again, Trump only cares about the fact that if he's president, he stays out of jail. Keep in mind, the man is under multiple cases, multiple indictments, a major one regarding his real estate business and Trump Organization really ruled against him and could possibly mean suspension and foreboding of his business license, which means that Trump Tower could possibly be up for sale, allegedly. But it's amazing that Trump, in his lack of being able to grasp the Constitution, believes that, oh, well, I should be immune. I should be immune from anything I did at the White House. No, that's not how it works. At the same time, you was guilty long before you took that oath to the office. But it's interesting now that he's using where Trump is now. He's in his element. He's in the whole litigation, lawsuit, and his followers pay his legal bills. At first, everybody was saying that the Republican National Convention's doing it, but they're broke. $8 million left in their war chest, and they're broke. At the same time, if they were supporting Trump, they no longer support him now. Because think about it, for a man that's facing this much, supposedly one of the richest men in the world, who is a con man that's basically moving money from one jar to another, and at the same time, his constituents are still paying. So if you ever laugh with somebody who's a Trump fan and goes, just ask them, what do you actually give to the Trump Organization as far as monetary goes? If they say it's a high number, you found the reason why Trump can still afford lawyers. But again, like you said, he could appeal the ruling, the fact that he does not have immunity. What does that basically mean? That basically means he can be hit with anything. He's a private citizen now because he's no longer president. Something Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to take to heart heavily. But speaking of things that are needed to take to heart, guys, again, We are going back to the bill. Now, again, I have to give them credit. Democrats and Republicans tried to come up with a bill. And even though I don't like the bill, here's what they came up with.
Senators from both political parties have unveiled their long-awaited proposal to overhaul the nation's immigration system. It's a $118 billion bill that would place new restrictions on asylum seekers. It also includes money for the war in Ukraine and funding for Israel. ABC's Ike Ajachi has more details and the reaction overnight. Ike, good morning.
Good morning, Allison. We finally know what's in this bipartisan bill, and House Republicans are not happy about it. This morning, Senate negotiators have released what's in their $118 billion bipartisan bill to address the crisis on the southern border. It includes $20 billion for immigration enforcement, the hiring of thousands of officers, new limits on how migrants apply and get asylum, and increased screenings for fentanyl and other drugs. The bill would also allow the Homeland Security Department the option to shut down the border if migrant crossings reach a certain level.
This gives a lot of leeway and power to the Department of Homeland Security. It allows the secretary to declare an emergency if there are more than 4,000 migrant apprehensions along the border in a given day for 7 consecutive days.
The massive bill also provides billions in funding for Ukraine and for Israel.
Leader McConnell and I, who disagree on many issues, have never worked so closely together on legislation as we did on this.
But overnight, House Speaker Mike Johnson said the Senate's border bill would be dead on arrival in the House, writing, "This bill is even worse than we expected and won't come close to ending the border catastrophe the president has created." Conservative Oklahoma Senator James Langford, the lead negotiator for Republicans, responded to Johnson's criticism.
I'm a little confused how it's worse than I expected when it builds border wall, expands deportation flights, expands ICE officers, Border Patrol officers, detention beds, how it creates a faster process for deportation.
Opposition could also come from the left, with immigration advocates critical of new limits on asylum.
I think we're going to see a lot of pushback from nonprofit organizations that work directly with migrants and migrant families who are in humanitarian situations. And that will be indicators for the Republican Party that they can't get everything they want, but they certainly will continue to ask for it.
An initial Senate vote on the bill could be held Wednesday, but with the Speaker already saying the bill is doomed in the House, the odds of it reaching the president's desk do not look promising.
All I can say is, why are we surprised? Because, again, I hate to say this, that whenever it comes to a bill that Democrats do, Republicans are always quick to shut it down. And in this case, Trump. In this case, Trump still has a hold of the Republican Party. This is true. And this bill, albeit not a fan of the bill either, because none of the bill included or did not mention, it didn't include fix the immigration system. It only included supplyment and armament and things of that nature to enforce security at the border. That's it. You basically said, here, Border Patrol, let's give you a budget increase. That's exactly what you did. But as like I said, guys, it goes back to the whole immigration system. If they don't want it fixed, they would rather it stay broken. They would rather it would just, remain this humongous problem for our country. So Republicans can poke a stick at it and say, this is a problem. At the same time, as much as that deal should have included asylum, it should have included hiring more judges, hiring more processing clerks, actually giving resources to the Department of Immigration. If it said that, I would have been more inclined to listen to what I'm seeing now, which is basically Trump is telling the GOP, do not give this. Trump is, and again, this is true. Trump basically told the GOP, do not give Biden this win. If you give Biden immigration, he wins. He wins the next presidency hands down, because that's things like this: healthcare, immigration systems being fixed, the VA being fixed. Those things are what I like to call next term set, which means that your next run as president is set just off that accomplishment alone. President Obama did it with healthcare. It wasn't the prettiest plan out there, but for all our talk of actually getting a healthcare exchange market and the ACA law into effect, you have to admit it's pretty monumental. At the same time, folks can get coverage regardless of their conditions, regardless if they're smoking or not, or regardless of XYZ. But you can get medical coverage now. But of course, Trump saw there and saw this and goes, no, because if we do this, that gives Biden a win. And if Biden gets a win, then I won't be president. I won't be president next year. Again, you can tell where Trump's core convictions are and really shouldn't be surprised. But like I said, it's amazing how, again, a bill comes up to solve immigration, or at least open the door to solve immigration, and Republicans shut it. But please, Republicans, tell me again why you're not considered closeted bigotists, especially when it comes to immigration, since you guys have no plan. But speaking of that, we're moving right along as well, guys, because again, I did talk about the Biden new forgiveness student loan plan, and forgive me for asking if it sounds really familiar.
Recipients could see more debt relief this month. The Biden administration has announced an acceleration for its latest debt relief plan. ABC's Alexis Christophorus is here with the details. Hi, Alexis.
Good news for thousands of people, Diane. So beginning this month, the Department of Education is sending more letters and emails to qualified borrowers, letting them know their loans have been forgiven. Now, to qualify, you must first be enrolled in the Education Department's income-driven repayment plan called SAVE. You can sign up at studentaid.gov. If you initially took out $12,000 or less in federal student loans and have made at least 10 years of payments, your remaining debts will be canceled. And for every $1,000 borrowed above $12,000, loans are forgiven after each additional year of payments. So, for example, if you borrowed $13,000, your loan would be forgiven after 11 years of payments. And more debt relief could be on the way. Later this month, the Biden administration will meet with education experts to figure out how to extend loan forgiveness to borrowers experiencing financial hardship. But any relief there is still not expected for at least a year. Meantime, millions of students may have just days to compare their financial aid packages before committing to a college this spring. And that's because the government, once again, has delayed the rollout. Enrolled in the Education Department's income-driven repayment plan called SAVE. You can sign up at studentaid.gov. If you initially took out $12,000 or less in federal student loans and have made at least 10 years of payments, your remaining debts will be canceled. And for every $1,000 borrowed above $12,000, loans are forgiven after each additional year of payments. So, for example, if you borrowed $13,000, your loan would be forgiven after 11 years of payments. And more debt relief could be on the way. Later this month, the Biden administration will meet with education experts to figure out how to extend loan forgiveness to borrowers experiencing financial hardship. But any relief there is still not expected for at least a year. Meantime, millions of students may have just days to compare their financial aid packages before committing to a college this spring. And that's because the government, once again, has delayed the rollout of its updated financial aid form known as FAFSA. And some schools now even considering extending their enrollment deadline beyond May 1st to give students and their families more time to decide where they can afford to go to college. So it's already a stressful time. This adds even more stress to those students and families.
All right, Alexis Christophorus.
So, okay. So for all those, and again, I point this out. I point this out because I'm gonna start from the beginning. So the plan, his new SAVE plan, if you borrow $12,000 or less or made at least 10 years of payments, then you can be forgiven. Then the rest of your loans can be forgiven. Or if you borrow $13,000, then after 11 years of payments, your student loans can be forgiven. Here's my thing. For all those that took those PPP loans, are you subjected to almost 10 years of paying it back before you're forgiven? Honestly, no. A good majority of you guys got your loans forgiven and you didn't have to pay back a dime. Yet you're asking students to do the same thing, except it's a variation. The reason why I asked this, why it sounded familiar, guys, is because it sounds like a variation of the students' public self-loan program, which again, if you're a public worker, like a 911 operator, teacher, things of that nature, and you got a loan for your education, then that student loan can be forgiven. What they basically did was take the premise of that and sit there and say, okay, if you're not a public servant, then hey, as long as you paid at least 11 to 12 years, whether you borrow $20,000 or $13,000, your loan can be forgiven. And that's always bugged me. Because imagine you going to college. Imagine you getting your degree. Imagine you finally being able to move forward with your career that you've always wanted. And at the same time, the haunting of how much that education costs you still hangs around your neck. Even more so that interest adds on to it. Interest that really makes no sense, but because the student loan area is an unregulated prime predator lending area, the banks and secure financial groups are able to do this. And imagine you being a kid, you being 17 or 18 years old, about to sign your life away for 10 to 20 years for money to actually go to college, in the hopes of starting your career, for more money. At the same time, you are now stuck. And again, I keep pointing this out that we can forgive businesses because I'll be honest with you, because we did the PPP loans, we forgave those businesses. True. But that money still gets paid out via the taxpayer, which a lot of y'all are going to come find out once you do tax returns. Again, mine included. We're all going to be a little bit mad when we see our tax refund. But that's only because we are paying back the PPP loans that were taken out and forgiven because Congress decided to. So I say it like this. If you can forgive a business of taking a PPP loan, you can forgive a college student of taking out a loan to go to college, because you can't forgive one until the other one to pay up, because that right there will invite trouble in itself. But again, another measure Biden could do. Biden could push forward and say, I want to eliminate all student loan debt. And of course, you're going to get you're going to get a lot of people who go, well, I paid my way through school. I did it while waitressing. I did it during construction. Bravo. But not everybody is you. Not everybody has the ability to have additional income or come from a very affluent family, or, have quite the sum saved up during work. Just because a lot of folks these days are really trying to make those pennies work. Not quarters, pennies trying to work. At the same time, you're mad because, oh, why do I pay for someone else's college? Well, you pay for someone else's business loan. Why not college as well? Because, guys, the simple fact of the matter, if a presidential candidate, because I cannot see Republicans doing it, but the fact that if a Democratic candidate sat there and said, my mission in life is to remove student loans to everybody, you have the attention of the world, because that affects people in the same sense where, making marijuana legal and decriminalizing it and taking off the controlled substance list, you would win by a landslide. Don't get me wrong. In 13 states of the U.S., you do have the ability to smoke. But again, it's a very careful situation, especially being around kids. So again, it's one of those we will have to see. And whether or not Biden does move forward with this, I kind of feel like this is another stick in the mud. I kind of feel like this is lip service. But again, he is running to be president. He is running to be president again. So we'll see. The next last story I got, guys, before we get to our feel good segment, you guys may remember this story about the black family that was moved from the car at gunpoint and handcuffed because they thought that the car was stolen, in which that I don't know how. Do not know how, because they sat there and said, as you can see at the bottom, a black woman who was removed from her car at gunpoint with her underage family members, as police officers mistakenly thought she had stolen her vehicle. Now, for all those that are wondering here, how in the world could you steal your own vehicle? At the same time, the woman did file a civil rights lawsuit against the city and state and received a $1.9 million settlement. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, sometimes it's still not enough. It's easy to sit there and say, oh, here's $5 million, go away. It's easy to sit there and say, well, I mean, they got paid, so they're going to be fine, right? Wrong. Because imagine their children. Their children are young. At the same time, they're subjected to this. At the same time, now they have a negative stigma of law enforcement in their heads, or they're being very cautious. But either way, it makes no sense to be that overzealous and actually allow them to basically view themselves or help themselves. But I digress. We shall see. Again, the next story I got, guys, is basically what I've been saying. If you raise a terrorist, yes, you should be tried for it. And in this case, this mom was.
Dirty manslaughter. Jennifer Crumbley, silent and stoic as the jury announced her fate. Guilty on all 4 charges, 1 for each student her son Ethan killed in the 2021 Oxford High School shooting. As she was led away in handcuffs, prosecutors embracing the families of her son's victims. Steve St. Juliana lost his 14-year-old daughter, Hannah.
It's a bit of a wake-up call for people to realize that they have to take a bit of responsibility.
Crumbley is America's first parent to ever stand trial for their child's mass school shooting.
My son has ruined his life.
The defense arguing in court she was unaware of any mental health issues with her son.
I've asked myself if I would have done anything differently, and I wouldn't have.
But prosecutors painted a very different picture, portraying Crumbley as a negligent parent who ignored warning signs in Ethan.
He literally drew a picture of what he was going to do. He drew a picture. It says, "Help me."
And instead of getting Ethan help, prosecutors argued his parents bought him a gun, showing this video of Crumbley at a shooting range with him just days before the massacre. Experts say their verdict could profoundly impact how authorities prosecute these cases.
Does this open the door for parents to be held accountable for mass shootings, school shootings in the future?
It absolutely does. Police officers will start looking at the parents and the way they deal with their children.
Craig Schilling, who lost his 17-year-old son Justin, hopes it will help prevent future tragedies.
Can't just continue living life with the uncertainty of whether or not our kids are going to come home from school.
And Jennifer Crumbley's sentencing is set for April 9th. She faces a maximum of 15 years in prison per charge. At the same time, her husband James Crumbley's trial is set to begin next month, and he faces the same charges, 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
So a lot of people are going to be sitting there wondering, it's like, well, it's the parents. Well, yes, the parents of the individual that decided to shoot up a Detroit school system. Yes, the parents should be tried because they purchased the firearm. It happened under their watch. There were warning signs. But it's amazing to me that a lot of people, especially on social media, are questioning the fact that the mother has to pay for it. The mother has to pay for the trial and things of that nature. And again, this comes back to parents' personal responsibility. I myself, like I say, I'm a gun owner. Does it run through my head that I need to be more prolific and protective about my firearms because I have children in the house now? Absolutely. Will my child ever have one of those? Hell no. Because it invites chaos. It invites ill repute. It basically, at that point, like those parents did with that deranged little terrorist, you put a gun in his hands, you're just as guilty as you pull the trigger yourself. So no, I don't feel bad for the woman. Actually, she got more time than 15 years, but that's just all I'm saying. But that being said, guys, we are going to move to our feel-good segment because usually how the Frack We Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes make you faith in humanity. But hey, it's Hump Day, which is Wednesday. Tomorrow is Friday, which is Thursday. We leave you guys out with some good vibes. And this I had to do from the Grammys on Sunday night because one of my favorite rappers, and probably one of your rappers' favorite rappers, finally got his due, and he wasted no time.
And the Grammy goes to scientists and engineers, Killer Mike. Where's my old lady at? Where my wife at? I'm not going to take too much of your time. Hopefully I get to come back up here. I heard you guys clapping when they called my name, so I'm going to take my shades off. I want to say I'm from the Southeast, like DJ Paul. I'm a black man in America, and as a kid, I had a dream to become a part of music. And that 9-year-old is excitedly dancing inside of me right now. I want to thank Loma Vista, Adam, Tom, Todd, Ryan, all of you guys. I want to thank my management company. My manager, Will, is active. But thank my A&R cuz, Lightyear. I want to thank everyone who dares to believe that art can change the world. So thank Dre, thank Future, thank Aaron, thank all the producers on here, but everyone in this room, it is our responsibility to keep using our imagination to shape and form the world. Thank you, and I hope it's not the last time I see you tonight.
And again, he actually went on, guys, to actually win 3 Grammys for Best Rap Album and Best Song. Best Song of the Year, Best Rap Album. I think those are the other 2. But anyway, shout out to Killer Mike for that one. So that's going to do it for this week, guys. I do thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here as usual. I do want to shout out my boy Vaughn, a Big VZA Dot, who does do beats and things of that nature. Definitely check him out, Big VZA Dot, on all social media. Also, please check out Blurred Station, guys. It is the place for the new Netflix. The reason I say it's the new Netflix is it is for blurs and people of color for things of that nature. It has comics, it has movies, it has anime, it has manga, it has the news that you can use. Because trust me, a lot of great things are about to come from this wonderful new vehicle called Blurred Station. You can definitely check them out. It's $10.99 a month. If you do go to the login area, do select the Blurred's Eye View and then select any affiliate member under there. And like I said, guys, it's $10.99 a month for 36 months. And after those 36 months, you do have the ability to own a piece of Blurred Station. Yes, own. Do you know how hard it is to get a piece of Netflix, of Disney, of Apple TV Plus, things of that nature? You can do so a lot easier on the Blurred Station, but definitely check them out. As for myself, guys, you can usually find me, BlackBox447, on all the socials as I do reviews on everything, including gym stuff, because I do a couple push-ups. The link that's actually trolling at the bottom and make that a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, have you taken my link to this YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, of course, off on this podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Don't just like and tell me you like the show. I appreciate the compliment. But like it, share it. We're trying to make it grow. And just like PBS, we cannot do it without you. That's all I ask. Let people know about it, sure. But just don't tell me I like the show and I kept it pushing. I'm not asking for donations, but it's like the church. We'll take whatever donation you want to use. We'll take every donation that you would like to give. Whether it be Venmo, PayPal, or as long as it's not crypto. I don't want to get lost in that. But that being said, guys, like I said, the presidential nomination is coming up. Along with the federal, we almost supposed to do the local. What I mean by this, check out the candidates, really do your research, see if they match your views or not. And also, if you feel like you can do a better job, there's plenty of sites out there that'll help you learn how to run for office in your local or state. Simply go from there. But guys, the only thing that I wish for of all of this is that for you guys to be active, for you guys to be aware, for you guys to be informed. Because once you are, it's a little hard to go back to not caring. And you actually care a great deal about what goes on in your world once you're informed. So again, with that being said, guys, please don't sleep on it. Please go vote when the time comes. So the last thing that's about the Frack We Got Here, guys, it's not about doing anything but giving you the truth. It's about informing you. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the facts to allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman as a cybersecurity national advisor. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go about our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. The playback will be on this weekend. Still want to know your opinions on everything we talked about, guys. Keep the conversation going. Just keep it clean and no attacks. Let the facts speak for themselves. At the same time, be nice, be kind. Don't be a dick to anybody. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.